Q&A. During the Q&A, if you can please introduce yourself, your name, and your media outlet. And we'll get started in about 2 minutes. Which one? The first one is Chief John Donnelly, JOHN DONNELLY, Senior. And Terry, TERRYLIERCKE. He's the Vice President and Manager of Reagan National Airport.
How do you pronounce that last name?
Lyric. Yeah. All right, we'll get started in about 1 minute.
Good to go. Somebody in? Welcome and thank you for being here. Joining me today, I'm John Donnelly, Chief of the District of Columbia Fire and EMS Department, and I'm representing the Unified Command Team that is operating today. I'm joined today by Deputy Mayor Lindsay Appiah, Metropolitan Police Department Executive Assistant Chief Jeff Carroll, Clint Osborne, the Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency Director for the District of Columbia, the Military District Washington, the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, and both the fire and police chiefs, the United States Coast Guard, the Maryland State Police, the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, and the Virginia State Police. And I'd like to thank all of them for being here as well. We are here at Reagan National Airport with our Unified Command Team, and we will provide an update on where recovery efforts stand. We'll also give more information about the cadence of updates from Unified Command going forward. I'm joined today by Terry Lyric from the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority and the other members of the Unified Command Team. As we continue to learn more about the victims, we are sharing our prayers and condolences with the families of the loved ones and those who were lost in this tragedy. And I want to thank again our response teams for their heroic efforts over the past 30 or so hours, including the team on this site, as well as the teams that are supporting the families. This is heartbreaking work. The National Transportation Safety Board is leading the investigation into what happened, and they will be providing updates later this afternoon. We will not be talking about the investigation in this conference. So Terry Lyric from the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority will now provide an update on airport operations, and then I will update you on the activities since our last briefing and the activities over the next operational period.
Thank you, Chief. Again, my name is Terry Lyric. I'm the Vice President Airport Manager of Reagan National Airport. Just kind of wanted to give an update on where we stand. As we know, the airport is open and operating. We are in a reduced capacity and a reduced arrival rate due to the proximity of the recovery site. We do have 2 of our 3 runways that are closed. So as always, we do want to encourage passengers to reach out to their airlines for any potential flight delays. Typically, a full schedule here at National Airport would encompass about 800 flights a day using those 3 runways. We've had several, obviously, cancellations yesterday. Airlines are resuming as much as possible normal operations. I think we have about 100 flights or so canceled today. I do want to just recognize a lot of the airport teams who work behind the scenes, and we are here to support and coordinate with the ongoing recovery efforts, as well as working with NTSB in their investigation. With that, I'll just turn over my remarks to the next speaker. Thank you.
So, overnight, our teams continued search operations and surface work, including side sonar scanning, shoreline searches, and aerial searches. Also, 2 Coast Guard cutters have arrived on station, and you may be able to see them out there on the water. Other efforts off-site included the NTSB, American and PAL Airlines, and district officials meeting with families at the Family Assistance Center and providing the support that they need to get through this horrible event. We've identified we have recovered 41 sets of remains, and 28 of those victims have been positively identified. And as of 6 a.m. this morning, next of kin notifications have been made to 18 families. Going forward with our recovery operations, search teams will continue to work the site. We'll do side sonar scanning, searching the shoreline, and aerial operations. Our dive teams are working in targeted areas, and additional Coast Guard assets will arrive this afternoon. The salvage crews have begun to arrive on the scene, and they're assessing the work that's going to be needed to recover the aircraft from the water. We expect those operations to begin no later than tomorrow afternoon. The teams are also working the shoreline down the river, as we do expect some debris to be dragged by the current. And if members of the public believe they have information or have discovered potential wreckage, we're asking you not to touch it and to call 911, and we will send somebody out to get it. Supporting the response team. This has been a tough response for a lot of our people. We've had over 300 responders operating at one time, and I think we've got about 500 people that have worked through the site. So the Unified Command has activated peer support for its first responders to make sure that everybody has somebody that can help us get through this. And the outpouring of support, people like the World Central Kitchens relief team and many of the local restaurants, the restaurants here at the airport, have supported the people working, making sure they have food so they don't have to stop. And I want to thank the rest of the community for their outpouring of support and the messages that they have given to the firefighters, police officers, military officials, and everybody else that's working. If you want to help, the Greater Washington Community Foundation has a relief fund. You can donate at the link above. We also, be careful, avoid your fundraising scams, only trust verified sources, and ways you can help is to amplify that message using trusted sources on social media. Exercise patience through the transition as this impacts the region. Things like the delays at the airport, people are going to need your grace. I know we've got a lot of vehicles around. We've got some areas closed that are normally open to the public around the river, and we need your patience in that. Check in on your friends and neighbors, and if you're feeling anything about this event, please call the crisis hotline, talk to a medical professional, and you can use 988 on your phone. What do we got here? Is that the last one? Catching up. So with that, we're going to be able to take a few questions. I'm going to start over here, and we'll work our way across. 1, 2, 3. Yes, sir.
It's Campbell Roberts with the New York Times. Can you talk about the FAA's decision to restrict helicopter flights in and around National Airport?
So the question is, can anybody talk about the FAA's decision to restrict flights in and around National Airport? I don't believe we have any. So that's probably beyond the scope of this interview. You'll have the NTSB later, and that's something I might ask them. Yes, sir.
Chief Skylar Edder with CBS News. Given the time that has passed, can you describe the conditions right now as it relates to the recovery process and whether you all think that y'all will be able to recover more bodies?
Okay, the question was, given the time that has passed and the conditions outside, do we believe we're going to be able to recover more bodies? And there's a lot of challenges with that. So I'm going to answer that one. I'm going to say that, yes, we expect to recover all of the bodies. We have that's why our teams are still working. We're going to have to work with the salvage company to do some of that work. Yes, sir.
If I may ask a question on behalf of the Reagan National Airport. This is Alex Gabriello with News Nation. A lot of questions now circulating about the crowded airspace surrounding this airport. Also reports about other close calls, including 24 hours before the fatal accident. We've seen the FAA take the position of restricting the airspace, specifically Route 1 and 4 for choppers in this area. What is the airport's position about potentially toning down some of the air traffic around this airport, and should this have been done sooner, specifically the restrictions on the airspace for choppers on Route 1 and 4?
You can restate the question.
Yeah, sure. The question was regarding air traffic, helicopter routes up and down the Potomac, right? That is an FAA responsibility. The airspace is controlled by the FAA. The airport does not have any responsibility outside of the surfaces, the airport itself.
But most certainly, this has been conversations that you've had, and when it comes to safety for the airport, for the passengers that come in and out of D.C.
Absolutely. The FAA does regulate the airport, and we follow all FAA safety regulations. Again, all I can say is the FAA is responsible for the airspace.
Very briefly, a question for the chief. Sir, how long do you expect it to take for the salvage to be removed from the river to recover the bodies and do everything that's necessary to bring closure for these families?
So we're working as fast as we can. I'm not going to be able to give a timeline on that as there's a lot of unknowns. But we hope that we have more salvage equipment here tomorrow, and that operation could begin then. So next three questions. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, Chief Perry Russell, ABC News. How is weather affecting recovery efforts? Rain today, rain forecast later. What are the elements inside the river? How has all of this affected recovery?
So the question is, how does the weather affect the recovery operation? In my view, it may slow it down slightly, but all of the units out here, all of the people work year-round in all conditions. We're going to be careful. We're going to make sure we don't hurt anybody else, but the weather we've seen so far is weather we can work in. If that were to change, that would affect it, but we haven't seen that. I would get one question at a time. Yeah.
Chief, you talked earlier about access to the site and to gain access to that area. We don't think that ice was a real problem that day, but the John Glenn has been out of service for some time. Do you have an update on when that vessel can be put back in service?
The question is access to the site and the John Glenn is the fireboat for the District of Columbia. So what I referred to on access to the site is things like Gravelly Point being closed and that being lost as a local recreation area while we're working. There was some ice on the river. We made good access to the site with everybody else. The John Glenn, as has been reported, is one of the district's fireboats. It is not the primary asset for this type of operation, and while it's in the shop, it didn't affect anything, and we hope to have it back by this summer. Yes, sir.
Mr. Lyric, I have a follow-up question about the runway closures. Grady Trimble with Fox. So you said 2 of 3 are closed because of their proximity to the crash site.
Yeah.
Can you explain why they remain closed?
Sure, absolutely. So the question is, why are 2 of the 3 runways here at National Airport closed? So if you're familiar with the runway configurations here, we have a main north-south runway, and we have 2 what we call crosswind runways. The 2 crosswind runways, if aircraft were to take off or land over the aircraft recovery sites that is out there right now, those would be impactful to the operation. So we've elected to keep those runways closed.
And to follow up, how long do you expect that to remain the case? And are you saying that if there are still recovery teams in the Potomac, then there's no chance that these 2 runways are going to open? And how does that impact?
Yep, sure. So the question is asking how long we anticipate those runways to be closed. That's a dynamic situation. We've worked with the FAA. I think what we've communicated is we anticipate, our expectation is a week. However, we'll reassess on Monday, and as the recovery efforts go, it's a fluid situation, obviously. Yep.
Okay, Paul, here and there.
Chief, by talking salvage, can you confirm that you're not going to be able to recover the remaining bodies until you're able to get the fuselage off the floor of the river and onto a barge? And then my follow-up to that is, are you making an effort today to get into the helicopter to recover those 2 bodies?
So the question is, do we believe we have to lift the aircraft out of the water in order to finish and find the rest of the remains? And the second part of the question was, are we focused on the helicopter today? And the answer to the first question is yes, I believe for us to recover the rest of the remains that we are going to need to get the fuselage out of the water. The second part of the question is yes, a lot of our operations, not all of them, but a lot of our operations today are focused on the helicopter. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this question is for Mr. Lyric. I'm about Fox 5 DC. Can you confirm sufficient staffing moving forward in the tower? I don't know if that's in your scope or if that's
It's not. So the question was regarding staffing in the air traffic control tower. That's outside my scope of responsibility.
Chief Donnelly, can you talk a little bit about the toll this has taken on your teams, and specifically how many people still remain? I know on day one there were upwards of 300 mutual aid who are still out there.
So, you know, this is an incident where even if it doesn't affect you right now, it's probably going to affect you later. It'll be something that you think about. So in emergency services across the board, we have support teams. The National Capital Region, all of the departments do. So they've been activated. The International Association of Firefighters regional peer support team has been activated to help support. And the incident management team, as they rotate responders through the scene, are making sure that there are opportunities for them to get the assistance they need. I'm going to ask the Virginia State Police to talk about the peer support he's doing a little bit.
I'm First Sergeant Blank with the State Police in Virginia. We are working with our partners. MWA is leading the support for the effort for peer support, but I'm here in support of that effort. And we have several regional partners that are contributing to that, including mental health professionals who are on site from ANOVA and from a nonprofit in the area that are providing support. The Virginia Law Enforcement Assistance Program is also planning to send support, and all of the most of the public safety agencies in the region are providing personnel to assist with that effort.
Yes, ma'am.
Marielle Cardone with DC News Now. I know that this is an unpleasant question for you, Chief, but we've been hearing reports from people that live along the river of potentially seeing partial remains coming up on shore. People are seeing these. Is that an endangered area, or is that way of keeping people away from some of these shore?
So we're not keeping anybody away from the shoreline for any of those reasons. If we've closed off an area like Gravelly Point here, it's because we have emergency access vehicles coming in and out, and we need the access to the river. We have received some 911 calls about either debris or remains. I don't know that we've actually found any remains. We've certainly picked up debris from those 911 calls. So we're going to do 3 more and go 1, 2, and 3 in the back. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Chief. Jonathan Kersley from Channel 9 Australia. This is a question for Terry. Terry is Vice President and Manager of this airport. What concerns have you had specifically about the congested airspace, and have you ever raised those directly with the FAA?
So again, the United States airspace is the safest in the world. Safety is one of our top priorities, and we continue to ensure that the airport is safe for operations.
To follow up on that, it wasn't safe in this instance. There have been near misses here before. You would have been made aware of those as manager of this airport. Have you raised concerns with the FAA about the congested airspace around Washington's airport?
Yeah, I can say again, we work with the FAA. We're regulated by the FAA. We comply with all FAA safety regulations.
But that doesn't answer the question.
Yes, sir.
Dave Jefferson from Reuters. Can you talk about how much debris has been removed to Hangar 7? And at some point, will that operation be transitioned to a private company that NTSB will hire, or will you guys actually put all the debris in the hangar?
So that's an investigation question and appropriate for NTSB this afternoon.
We'll take 2 more.
Yes, sir.
Tom Resnick, Channel 7. I had a question for Terry as well. As far as the airport took a position against adding extra long-distance flights out of here, and one of the concerns was there's just too much already going on. Do you maintain those concerns because they're supposed to start in the next few months? Are you concerned about safety as those extra flights start?
Yep, thanks, Tom. So the question was regarding the additional slots to DCA. As you know, the slots are federally controlled, federally mandated, and we have to follow federal regulations.
Are you still concerned about them? I mean, the airport's authority was concerned at the time.
Yes, again, we have to follow the federal regulations on the slot controls. Yep, thanks.
Okay, Sid.
Hi, Jim Stone,
There.
CGT Yeah, Terry, one more question for you. You're talking about the FAA, Congress, federally mandated, et cetera. Where does the buck stop with this accident and ensuring that the next flight to take off from this runway is safe?
So again, the question is really directed to the FAA and Congress, I believe.
Yeah. Last question's right here.
You have 41 victims recovered. Are you confident in the location of the others? Where are they? Are you confident that you know where they are?
So I think we know where they are. We won't know until we're done. I mean, we're going to continue the search operation, but we've searched a large portion of this river, and we are right there. So, I didn't read. So the question, let me answer the question again, or let me restate the question, sorry. The question was, are we confident we know where the other remains are? And that it couples with the question about removing the aircraft. I believe that when we remove the aircraft, that will help us resolve this number. If it doesn't, we will continue the search. Okay.
That's the process. You take the salvage, the fuselage out, you're going to put it on a, just reiterate that process, what that looks like. Removing it, putting it on a barge, is that right?
So some of that isn't decided yet. We'll have to see what the salvage team is doing once they get all of their equipment here. So we may have more on that tomorrow, but so I don't know the exact process today. So thank you all for coming today. Hopefully we answered your questions. We are going to do this again tomorrow. I don't have the time yet, but we will push that out so we can provide the same type of update. Thank you.
Hey guys, just a reminder, any communication related to the incident or for PIO requests, things like that, it's incident.pio@dc.gov. If you also want to email there, we'll make sure that we send out any update on timing for tomorrow as well. So incident.pio@dc.gov.
How you doing, buddy? Good to see you, buddy.
Are we confident we know where the other remains are? And that it couples with the question about removing the aircraft. I believe that when we remove the aircraft, that will help us resolve this number. If it doesn't, we will continue the search. Okay.
That's the process. You take the salvage, the fuselage out, you're going to put it on a, just reiterate that process, what that looks like. Removing it, putting it on a barge, is that right?
So some of that isn't decided yet. We'll have to see what the salvage team is doing once they get all of their equipment here. So we may have more on that tomorrow, but so I don't know the exact process today. So thank you all for coming today. Hopefully we answered your questions. We are going to do this again tomorrow. I don't have the time yet, but we will push that out so we can provide the same type of update. Thank you.
Live from DCA there, that is the Unified Command Team leading the recovery effort after that deadly collision between the American Airlines flight and the Army helicopter this week, killing 67 people in total. We know now that one runway out of 3 remains open. There were about 100 flights canceled today, so clearly operations changing now at DCA. A salvage team has arrived on the scene. Specialized machinery will be joining in this effort, and it looks like with regard to police, fire, and the military, they will all join in. More than 300 people and responders here working on this recovery effort. And I think one of the most important things the fire chief did say is he is confident that all bodies will be recovered. Let's bring in our transportation reporter, Sam Sweeney, also White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks. Sam, let's go ahead and start with you. What stood out to you? Because previously we were under the assumption that not all bodies would would be recovered due to the fiery crash. But now it sounds like the fire chief is confident that everybody's remains will be returned back to their loved ones.
And look, Kira, this makes sense. This is a CRJ-700. It's a very small airplane. I'm 6'2", and when I get on one of these planes, I often have to bend over because they are so small. It's 2 seats on each side. These people were buckled into their seats, and they're in the fuselage. It's extremely difficult for a diver who's wearing scuba gear, an air tank, to get inside of that aircraft and begin removing those bodies. Again, it's been broken up, so some of these seats did come loose, but for that small fuselage that is still intact, it is very difficult to get in there, and this was a full flight.
Got it. And Mary Alice Parks, I understand we're learning more about the soldiers among that crew that died in this crash.
Yeah, Kira, I'm going to read a little bit from this new statement from the Army. They identified 2 of the 3 Army soldiers who died in that helicopter crash, including, they say that the remains of Chief Warrant Officer Andrew Lloyd Eves, who's 39 years old, from Maryland. His remains, they say, have not been recovered. So he is still listed with his duty status unknown. It just kind of breaks your heart to imagine what that family is dealing with. But this statement sort of goes on to talk about just this decorated career that he had. He served in the Navy first for 10 years, from 2007 to 2017, before then becoming a pilot, a Black Hawk pilot for the Army. In 2017, he continued in that job until today. He is, like I said, just decorated. I mean, this long list. I am married to a naval officer, and I can tell you that this is a long list of incredible achievements from this officer. And then they also included, they say, Staff Sergeant Ryan O'Hara, 28 years old, of Georgia, is believed to also be deceased. His remains, it says, were the ones that were recovered from the scene. We had heard that from first responders, from those on the ground in the last 24 hours, that they were able to recover the remains of one of those soldiers who died in the crash. So it seems like, according to the Army, that was the remains of Staff Sergeant Ryan Austin O'Hara, 28 years old, from Georgia. Says that he had been a Black Hawk helicopter sort of mechanic and repairer for a long time. Since 2014 to present day, he had deployed to Afghanistan back in 2017, and also decorated a number of awards from his just remarkable service. It says here in this statement that the name of the soldier, of that third soldier, will not be released at the time, at the request of the family. Of course, we can just barely wrap our heads around what they are dealing with, the grief and the sorrow after such a tragic crash. Kira.
Mary Alice Parks, Sam Sweeney, thank you. I think as we continue the investigation, all the details there, we must never forget those who died. And there's 67 individuals that will continue to lift up as we learn who they are and how they lived their life. All right, quick break. We'll be right back.
This is the Tempur-Pedic Adapt mattress, and we designed it to help make aches and pains a thing of the past. Because our most advanced, infinitely adaptable Tempur material eases your pressure points, inch by inch and molecule by molecule, in a way that no other mattress can. All night, every night. During our President's Day sale, save up to $400 on select adjustable mattress sets. Shop now at TempurPedic.com.
The Disney Resorts Collection is the most magical place to stay at the most magical place on Earth. And with extra time at any of the 4 theme parks, why would you stay anywhere else? Start saving today.
The all-new 2020 True Crime. They were living the high life, but it was all about to come crashing down.
Everybody thought car bombing has to be a mob hit.
Inside a murder mystery as it unravels. The new 2020, now streaming on Hulu.
Air safety failures, families grieving, and now investigators have the daunting task of trying to piece together not only the wreckage, but what went wrong when a passenger plane and an Army helicopter collided over our nation's capital. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. We do begin with new information. The Army now identifying 2 of the 3 soldiers who were in that helicopter in this deadly crash. Their names, Staff Sergeant Ryan Austin O'Hara of Georgia and Chief Warrant Officer Andrew Lloyd Eves of Maryland. Also, a key break in the case, the NTSB recovering the black boxes from the passenger plane. Those flight recorders could shed light on the mystery of how that American Airlines jet and Black Hawk exploded near Reagan National. 67 people were killed, and investigators continue to look for answers. The recovery effort entering a new phase. Crews now waiting on heavy machinery, including cranes, to begin lifting pieces of that fuselage out of the water so divers can reach the remaining victims lodged beneath. Family members of those victims determined to keep their memories alive.
He was young, he was so young, and he was excited about life and his future and getting a dog and a house and kids, and this is just tragic.
She was just such a fighter in everything she did, and she just lived life to the fullest with everything. She was so proud of herself in figure skating, and I will miss that so much.
Joining me now, transportation reporter Sam Sweeney, our White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks. So, Mary Alice, what more can you tell us about these soldiers? Now we have names. I know we're learning more about their background too, and their families.
Yeah, the Army put out this statement that said, our deepest condolences go out to all the families and friends impacted during this tragedy. We'll support them through this difficult time. Of course, they also said the statement came from the Major General that's there it's a part of the Joint Task Force here. Obviously, you can imagine how many military Army bases are right in this greater sort of D.C. area. And what's interesting is that the statement goes on to talk about how his team is also still just working on the recovery operation and supporting the FAA and the NTSB during this work. But they want to make sure that they are also supporting the families at this time. It's interesting that only 2 of the 3 soldiers that we know died in this crash are identified here. One, Staff Sergeant Ryan Austin O'Hara, 28 years old from Georgia. He is believed to be the one who they were able to pull the remains of his body out of the crash site. The Army writing that he had been a Black Hawk helicopter mechanic repairer for a long time, over 10 years. He deployed to Afghanistan back in 2017. Numerous awards he was decorated and clearly gave. Officer Andrew Lloyd Eves, 39-year-old from Great Mills, Maryland. His remains have not yet been recovered. He was also highly decorated. He actually, they say, was in the Navy for over 10 years back in 2007, 2017, and then became a Black Hawk pilot for the Army back in 2017. Hugely decorated. We're talking about young men that had tons of experience, and of course are missed today by their loved ones, Kira.
Understandably. And Sam, we are learning more about the flight recorders also that have been retrieved. Is it at least 1 so far?
The flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder have been recovered from that American Airlines flight and are at the NTSB lab. And we are told that we could get a reading of those as early as today. But meantime, that investigation continues out on the water. Salvage crews are expected to arrive as early as tomorrow with barges, but there are still bodies inside of that fuselage. They've only recovered 41 bodies of the 67 people on both the helicopter and the airplane. It's a very small plane. It's a regional jet. It's a confined space despite it breaking apart, and that's what's likely proving to be difficult as these people are strapped in their seats. They're asking nearby residents who find anything on the shorelines to immediately call 911, but they won't be able to get those other bodies out until they lift that wreckage.
Got it. Mary Alice, Trump continuing to blame DEI initiatives for this crash, doubling down again today. We have to point out there's still no evidence to support that. It's creating a lot of tension in our country.
I think you're exactly right, Kira. I think that we've heard from a number of experts, including investigators that are working around the clock right now to try to get to the bottom of what exactly happened, what led to this tragic crash, who've basically said this is not helpful and have reiterated that there's absolutely no evidence at this point that there were ever standards that were lowered or loosened either in the Army for pilots or with the FAA for air traffic controllers over the last few years around diversity or sort of DEI hirings and some of the things that Trump has suggested. I think that there's going to be a big conversation about why the president sort of suggested that he understood or knew what had happened or led to this tragic crash before investigators sort of came forward with any evidence. It was striking to me yesterday how many reporters asked the president directly if he had evidence to support any of his claims and assertions and innuendo, and he said no, that he was just offering opinions. But you know, a conversation too in this country, I think you're exactly right about whether those comments from the president were hurtful.
Well, senior White House correspondent Selena Wang is just joined us from outside the White House. There she was inside the briefing that happened this afternoon, where also questions were asked about those tariffs. So let's talk about from cars to fruits, how exactly these tariffs on Canada and Mexico will impact us here in the U.S.
Yeah, Kira, well, the White House press secretary announced that the president is following through on his tariff threat that he's going to be imposing tomorrow, 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada and 10% tariffs on China. Now, this could have a sweeping impact for U.S. consumers and for the world. We're talking about America's 3 biggest trading partners. If these are indeed across-the-board tariffs, as Trump has vowed, this would upend global supply chains, the global economy. It could seriously damage the economies of Canada and Mexico, and it could also raise prices for American consumers at the grocery store, at the gas pump. We're, again, talking about America's 3 trading partners. We import a huge amount of goods from these countries. Take a listen, though, to what the White House press secretary said when I asked her if she could guarantee that this wouldn't increase prices for American consumers. Can you guarantee that those tariffs won't increase prices for Americans, including at the gas pump in the grocery store?
I think Americans who are concerned about increased prices should look at what President Trump did in his first term. He effectively implemented tariffs.
If those tariffs do increase prices for Americans, will the administration reverse them?
That's a hypothetical question, and the president is intent on ensuring that he effectively implements tariffs while cutting inflation and costs for the American people.
So Levitt asked us to look at what Trump did during his first term. Well, the reality is that Trump's tariffs in his first term did, in fact, increase prices for American consumers. Studies have repeatedly shown that that was the case. This is because tariffs are a tax on goods that U.S. companies and U.S. importers pay. Then they largely pass those higher prices on to U.S. consumers. Now, there is a question as to whether or not Trump would include some exemptions to this tariff. He was asked whether or not yesterday oil would be included in these tariffs, and he wavered a bit on that. But we could, Kira, be on the cusp of a trade war here. Other countries have already responded. Canada is vowing to retaliate. Mexico has suggested they would do the same. This could get very serious.
All right, Selena, Mary Alice, Sam, thanks, guys. A lot of speculation continues to swirl around how this American Airlines plane and Army Black Hawk collided. The advantages and disadvantages of night vision goggles is a part of that conversation. Our next guest is a master aviator with more than 6,700 hours of flight time and more than 3,200 hours of using NVGs. Retired U.S. military pilot Alan Mack joins me now. Alan, great to have you back. Let's talk about how night vision goggles work and the challenges that you face sometimes when it comes to situational awareness.
Well, night vision goggles nowadays related to aviation have a great visual acuity compared to what they had several years ago. So as you listen to some of your experts that talk about some of the dangers of night vision goggles or such, you just have to wonder what versions they had. You know, nowadays you get about 20/25, 20/30 vision, right, versus 20/20 during the day. And that's not bad considering how it used to be. Now, the issue is, you know, you've got these 2 tubes in front of your face, the size of pretty much toilet paper tubes. They're about 1 inch from your face. You can look around them, you can look under them, which is one of the techniques that you have to do when you're flying in a built-up area like D.C. What you're looking at is either a green, yellow, or white phosphor, depending on the night vision goggles. And it's all monochromatic, right? So it's all the same color. You just have different brightnesses. So when it comes to picking another aircraft out of a built-up area, you might see it very obvious, or you might have to look, just off to the side or underneath it in order to find it because of the, red versus green lights to know whether an aircraft is coming at you or going away.
So from what we know so far, combined with all the flying that you have done, do you have a gut feeling here, an instinct about what happened? Pilot error, ATC comms, everything all at once?
Nothing I'm really willing to share until some more actual factual data comes out from the NTSB or the Army Safety Center. But I will tell you that it was more than one thing. An accident of this nature is not one item. The Black Hawk may have been flying too high or maybe too far over the river, but that alone isn't going to cause the accident unless something else is contributing. It could be a human factor, could be mechanical. We won't know until they read the voice data recorder from the Black Hawk, if it had one. Some of them do not. It's not mandatory to fly with them. So we'd have to see. Got it. And it's a typical procedure for training missions to take place near busy airports like DCA. But, it's very compacted airspace, and clearly there's lots of challenges. I've had pilots tell me it's very tricky going in and out of there. Do you think we're going to see... Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. That unit, the PAT guys, are stationed down at Davison Army Airfield out of Fort Belvoir. It's about 10, 15 miles to the south. Their primary mission is to move around the DC area, so it makes sense that they train there because that is where they fly. They have a national mission, as well as, they're a VH-60, right? So it's a VIP version of the aircraft, but they also have a national mission that, has some very important components to it. Continuity of government. They work with the Secret Service. They work with the FBI on missions that are very sensitive, and they have to get around that area. So why would you not train there? Well, I'm sure the training will continue, but changes will more than likely be made in a number of areas, and we'll talk about it when it happens and as we know more. Alan Mack, appreciate your experience and your time. Thank you. 67 families grieve this week's plane crash. It's left a debilitating hole in the hearts of so many people within the skating community. 14 skaters, coaches, and their loved ones were among those killed, including 16-year-old Spencer Lane and his mom, Christine. Tributes already pouring in for the teen, described by his family as a force of nature. Well, fellow figure skater Patrick Blackwell telling Rhode Island's ABC station what he'll remember the most about the friend he hoped to have around for life.
I want Spencer to be remembered as the grateful and caring person that he was, because that's what he was, enthusiastic and powerful, and he had such a bright future, and I want him to be remembered as the kind person he was.
Well, we're going to do that right now because he joins me with more on their friendship. Patrick Blackwell, thanks for joining me once again. So I know you were at the National Development Camp this weekend with Spencer and the others who passed away in this crash. How did you actually find out about the news? And how have you been processing all of this as a teenager?
I have found out about it through my mom, who just came up to my room and made the bold statement of, did you hear about the plane crash? And I immediately started digging and looking for research and seeing who was on that flight, what exactly happened. And, we still don't know what exactly happened, but I've been processing it, and it's definitely hard, like with everyone else involved, and families, loved ones, people who were related. So it's definitely been difficult, but it's unfortunate that it happened. And I think what I take away from it is I'm just happy that I was able to be friends with these people and know them.
And just to get inside this community, which is very, very special, and you all have such a unique gift. It's a beautiful sport. We all love to watch it during the Olympics. Tell me just about the Gina Hahn and Spencer and the Russian coaches and all of you guys, and what you love so much about skating and what made you all so close.
I think there's a certain feature about figure skating that really drives, if you have bad days, you really want to come back to it. Sometimes you want to give up, but then you have that certain thought in your mind of, I can't give up now, I have to keep going. And I think for every figure skater, that drives them to just keep going. And Spencer Lane really stood out to me of having that enthusiastic, powerful, and willpower to do everything.
That a lot of you had eyes on the Olympics. Apparently, Spencer had big dreams of one day making it to the Olympics. Did you have those conversations together?
We had a lot of conversations more as friendship and new jumps that he's learned and everything. I don't recall any specific competition-related conversations with him, but I remember him being extremely excited about his accomplishments, meaning, being able to go out to National Development Team Camp in Kansas and competitions, getting first at one of the NQSs, even though he's only started skating, I think 3 years ago, which that's unheard of, coming 3 years ago to skating and already having triples and having a gold medal at a national qualifying series event.
Wow. And so I guess as everyone is coming together, I know within this tragedy that all of you are coming together and also finding new friendships and consoling each other. We saw Nancy Kerrigan come forward and speak. It was very emotional. It moved a lot of people, especially for all of us who remember her from the 90s and the Olympics when she competed. How has this changed the community, you think? Has it brought you closer?
I think yes, because everyone is in the same boat here. We're all devastated by the news of the plane crash, and we're all coming together to acknowledge the skaters who are on, but not just the skaters, everyone. This is not just some event that we blow by. It's an event that we will remember, and the skaters and the great people who are on this flight will be remembered. And specifically for the figure skating community, everyone is talking about it. It's all over social media. And I think everyone's coming together because everyone was so great, and we have nothing but good things to say about these people. And we come together and talk about it and feel bad for everyone.
Well, I know that your skating and fellow skaters will keep their legacy alive in everything that you do. Patrick Blackwell, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up, the mother of the Michigan high school shooter asking a judge to throw out her historic conviction. What she's saying next.
When I was younger, my calling was to play football. But as I grew older, I realized life isn't about knocking people down. It's about lifting them up. At Ram, our calling is to build game-changing trucks. So when you find your calling, nothing can stop you from answering it.
You told Mom to send her prescription to Amazon Pharmacy. She didn't.
Price check in pharmacy.
All Mom had to do was use Amazon Pharmacy, and her meds would get delivered right to her door.
Some of our teammates ain't pulling their weight. Who'd you cut, Debo? Wallace. Man, his nose is always whistling in the huddle when he's nervous. I was talking about the video game.
People do not know how to date. That's why they come to us.
As a matchmaker, we're here to help you get your wings on.
Let's get some people married. Why are you single?
Maybe the kind of guys that I go for.
You go for hot guys.
Yeah.
It's a pitfall.
What would you say are like the top things you're looking for?
You don't like hairy men, so all Muslims are out. What are you talking about?
This process doesn't have to suck. He's cute.
Make it happen, boo.
The all-new 2020 true crime. They were living the high life, but it was all about to come crashing down.
Everybody thought car bombing has to be a mob hit.
Inside a murder mystery as it unravels. The new 2020, now streaming on Hulu.
Here you leave today and enter
a world of galaxies.
A world of speed.
Other worlds.
For whatever you love, infinite worlds await.
It was a kidnapping, torture case.
A crime of greed and cruelty.
The men tortured the victim by beating, tasing, and burning him.
And this is where it gets really horrible. The guy was cutting off my roommates. It was like a bad dream.
This crime was horrific.
He's a psychopath.
How could you possibly defend somebody like that?
This was a story about greed, sadism, evil.
Wicked Game, Devil in the Desert, only on Hulu.
Shopping is hard.
I can never find anything in my size.
I don't even know my size.
I buy my clothes the same place I buy my groceries.
What size are you? There's a better way. See this? No shopping. Make it easy with Stitch Fix. Just share your size, style, budget, and done. Your personal stylist sends pieces picked just for you.
That was easy.
Stitch Fix, online personal styling for everyone.
The 2025 Pro Bowl games. This year's stars show off their best moves in the Skills Show.
Oh my goodness.
Plus the AFC and NFC meet again in flag football.
Touchdown.
Skills Show January 30th on ESPN. Flag football February 2nd on ESPN and ABC.
People do not know how to date. That's why they come to us.
As a matchmaker, we're here to help you get your wings on.
Let's get some people married. Why are you single?
Maybe the kind of guys that I go for.
You go for hot guys.
Yeah.
It's a pitfall.
What would you say are like the top things you're looking for?
You don't like hairy men, so all Muslims are out. What are you talking about?
This process doesn't have to suck. He's cute.
Make it happen, boo.
Wish you could show your kids the world? On a Disney Cruise Line vacation to Alaska, Europe, or the Caribbean this summer, you can. Let us help grant your summer vacation wishes today, because the time to show your kids the world is now.
First mother convicted in connection to her son's school shooting is back in court, continuing to make her bid for freedom. This afternoon, the judge heard arguments over whether Jennifer Crumbley should get a new trial or have her conviction overturned after denying most of Crumbley's request for a new trial. Crumbley was found guilty of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in connection to the deadly Oxford High School shooting that her son carried out. Her husband, James Crumbley, convicted on the same charges. They were both sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison. Let's bring in our legal contributor and trial attorney, Brian Buckmeyer. So, Brian, what are you expecting from the judge today?
Short answer, to deny the motion that Jennifer Crumbley is putting forward. And the reason why I say that is because on the argument that information was kept from the defense, namely that there was some sort of agreement that two of the witnesses, a counselor at the school and the former dean, were testifying with some sort of proffer agreement or an agreement that they would not be prosecuted. The prosecution has 2 arguments. One didn't exist, and if there was no kind of leniency promised towards these witnesses, then the argument for the defense falls apart. And 2, I think the other argument, probably stronger, is that this would be what's called harmless error, that even if this information was given to the defense and the defense had the opportunity to cross-examine these 2 witnesses about a proffer agreement, 2 things can be true. Someone can testify with certain protections, and Jennifer Crumbley can be liable or criminally liable for her actions, as the jury found here.
Got it. So on what grounds is the defense arguing that she should be granted either of these motions?
Yeah, so with the motions that we've heard in the past, some that were already denied, like ineffective assistance of counsel, or the prosecution improperly charged Jennifer Crumbley as having a duty that they believe doesn't exist, or even this last issue that we have here, that information should have been turned over, the defense is arguing that certain facts were not provided to the defense, that they could have mounted a proper defense for Jennifer Crumbley, and the theories by which she was prosecuted were improper. Now, this is just the first level of an appeal, and so there are these issues here, but other issues that can come up down the road, depending on how this case goes. But again, I don't think that they're going to win at this level.
So what happens if the judge grants or denies the defense's motion? I mean, how would those scenarios actually play out?
So if the judge grants the motion, and let's say grants like wholeheartedly, yes, the prosecution should have turned over this discovery information. Yes, this was enough that it could have changed the course of this trial. The judge is then at a crossroads as to whether or not to dismiss the charges altogether or dismiss and grant a new trial. I don't think this is going to be one of those dismiss altogether. If the motion is granted, probably more likely than not a new trial, but I think that is a very high hurdle. If the motions are not granted, which I do think is the more likely result here, then this is, again, just the first level of appeal. I would anticipate that the defense would take this up to the next Court of Appeals in Michigan, the Michigan Court of Appeals, and make the same